yeah. Got God, I can never let none of you harm me, yeah. One deep, you don't see him, but I'm with an army, yeah. Perfect timing, I was hurting, yeah, let him scar me, no. Stay down, kept him close to my heart, if you know, you know. Well, if you know, you know. Well, if you know, you know. Well, if you know, you know. I gotta talk to him. Well, if you know, you know. Anywhere I go, I'm strapped. Boy, it's the living water, it ain't tap. Go anywhere, don't care about a map. I know the bridge that cover any gap.
All right. And just like that, we're back in another episode of the Bears Report. Before we get started, please make sure to tap that like button, turn those notifications on, and leave an interactive comment for me and Lester in the comments. If you don't say it, we don't know what we need to work on or what we missed, whatever the case may be. But we have Lester back in the building. Lester, how are you?
Doing good. How about you?
Man, I'm hanging in there, dude. Just been busy week.
I know, right?
Glad it's Friday.
Yeah,
Glad it's the weekend. I could sleep in tomorrow if I want to, knowing darn well I won't.
Yeah.
I'll just naturally wake up early. But
are you a morning person?
I'm a morning person.
Hell no. I'm
For
not,
real?
no, I'm not a morning
4:30.
person.
I'm up every 4:30.
The only time I get up early when I have to is when I work downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like I got to catch my train. But other than that, I mean, I will say this. On the weekends, I set my alarm for 10. Because if I don't set my alarm, I'll sleep all day. I ain't getting up.
For real?
Yeah, so I set it for 10 on the weekends, make sure I'm at least up by 10.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm a night owl. I'm up all night.
For real? I might be the first person in the history of the world to do this who sets his alarm for 4:30, but even if the alarm doesn't go off, I still wake up before 4:30. I don't know how or why. No matter how late I stay up, I can never sleep in for some reason. I don't know.
That's crazy.
I think I'm just trained. But you know why we're here for the Bears Report. Let's go ahead and kick it off because we said, hey, we'll do another pod when we get our guys, and it looks like we got our guys.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and let you kick that off of what you think and what you see.
So you want to talk GM or you want to talk head coach?
Let's talk GM.
You know, Ryan Poles is well respected around the league. You know, honestly, it's tough from a fan's perspective. You know, we don't know a lot about general managers, the guys in the front office, the assistant GM to the player personnel director to the we don't but we actually have one of our friends of our site, Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. He did one of our pods with one of our shows, and he has knowledge. Like he worked for Over the Cap for a long time. He's worked for the Minnesota Vikings for a touch.
Oh wow!
You know so like we lean on him every now and again to come on and give us some insight, and he spoke ravely about Ryan Poles like 2 months ago. So
former player too, correct?
He did.
Sorry to cut you off.
Not briefly. I mean, he was the undrafted free agent for the Bears. He didn't make the roster. and then I'm not. I mean, but I think it's a cool story though. He signed by the Bears. 20 years ago, whatever it was. Bears cut him. And now he's in charge of their whole roster. That's a good story right there. Yeah.
What do you think about the guy? You think
he's solid. He comes from the Chiefs organization, which is, one of the better organizations in football. He's worked for a number of GMs there. The current guy they have is Mike Leach or Veach, I think it is. But he's also worked with Chris Ballard, who is
really?
That's the Colts GM. He was up for the Bears job before they gave it to Ryan Pace, 5-6 years ago, whenever it was. So he has that connection as well. He's worked with Scott Pioli, who's in media now as former GM. So he has a lot of people that he's worked with that have done well. He understands a lot of different perspectives. He's done stuff in college scouting, in pro personnel. And then when he was he worked, I think, at his alma mater at college. He was in their administrative area as well. So he's kind of had a little bit of all aspects of the GM type job. Now,
what would you say is the biggest thing that he's going to have to do coming from behind? Because obviously you have no first-round pick. You have a SHIT roster, I would say. What do you think he's going to have to deal with the most to bring us back?
I think from what we understand, he's a draft guy. He's going to try and build through the draft. That's one of the criticisms Ryan Pace has had, during his time in Chicago was he would trade up a lot of times. So he would lose some of those low-round draft picks, I mean, we'll see what happens. He may do the same thing. He may trade up and get his guy. Who knows? I mean, but the first draft will be big for him. I mean, hopefully he stays where he is, lets the board come to him, maybe trade back if possible, pick up some extra picks.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's what this team needs. This team, like you said, the roster, there's some talent in a few spots, but the depth isn't there. So build the depth up with young rookies. I think that's going to be his key coming out of this first season.
Well, now, what would you say he has as his most valuable piece on the roster right now?
It's got to be Justin Fields. I mean,
Justin Fields?
I mean, just you have the quarterback in place. And again, he may not be the guy.
Justin Fields may not
I
be
mean,
the guy?
well, you never know. I mean, it's still young in his career, but the fact that the Bears have a second-year quarterback, that has to be something that a lot of these prospective GMs looked at. Well, the Bears is probably a good destination for them. You know, that's Ryan Poles was a finalist for a couple other spots. So, you know, the fact that the Bears wanted him, he wanted the Bears, I think that speaks to Justin Fields and what he believes they can build around the quarterback.
Yes, sir. Now, who would you say was the person that you wanted the most as your GM of the Chicago Bears?
GM's tough. I mean, I was fine with all the guys. Like I think we talked last time, even with head coach and GM, there were a lot of guys I'd be fine with. You know, there was no one I really was like, you know, they got to get him. Mm-hmm. You know, my big thing was get someone from a successful organization. Ravens, Chiefs, Packers, you know, it's an organization that's always in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And they did that. They got a guy with the Chiefs, and, you know, from what I understand, like I said, he comes highly recommended around the league. People said he's one of these fast-rising, you know, young studs in his profession. Fingers crossed that he's the guy for the Bears.
Because the Bears, they need
it. Yeah, they need it.
They need help on every level that you can get to, sir, and it's crazy. I'm just super excited to see what he's going to do, what he's going to bring. Now, as we can transition over to the head coach, we got our guy there as well, too. What did you think about that position? Because a lot of people did not like that move. What did you think?
Well, he's a defensive guy, so that's what everyone right away, they're mad because they wanted an offensive guy to build with Justin Fields for the next several years. They think that's the only way to go. But, I mean, I was kind of on the same path as well. I mean, the highest upside you have is for a head coach is a guy that calls the plays, so you know your offense will always be the same offense for the duration that he's with your quarterback. So, But, I mean, there's other ways to win in the NFL. It's not always, you know, an offensive play caller as your head coach. So Matt Eberflus is, again, he comes a lot of accolades. You know, he has that Colt defense playing, you know, top 10 for 40 straight years every year he's been there. Yeah. You know, it's a different style than what the Bears are used to from what we saw the last year with Sean Desai. Before that, you know, Chuck Pagano, Vic Fangio. It's a different style of defense.
Chuck Pagano was horrible.
He was. Sorry horrible. To cut you off. He was horrible. I mean, this new defense should be more like with the Lovie Smith style, as far as it's going to be a 4-3.
You think so?
Oh yeah, it's a 4-3. I mean, that's his defense. He runs basically like for old school Bears fans from Lovie Smith era, he runs the Tampa 2.
Yeah.
It has evolved a lot since then. It's not the same thing with the same holes in the zones that it was back then. You know, it's evolved quite a bit. You know, they do some man stuff. You know, they do some quarter stuff, some cover 3 principles. They do some pattern matching. So they try and do different stuff. There's actually, I tweeted out an article. If you go to my Twitter at WiltfongJR, I tweeted an article out about the entire Matt Eberflus scheme, how it's no longer the cover 2. It's evolved. So I'm excited what they do. It's you know, it's different, and I think that for me as a sports fan, I'm excited and I'm intrigued by seeing things when they change as much as they do, and I think it should be fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think that defense will look like? Who do you think will be moved around? Because obviously you got to rework the edges and the linebackers as well too if you want to switch to the Lovie Smith type of scheme.
Yeah, I think they're good in the front 7 to a point. I mean, with Khalil Mack, just goes back to defensive end. I mean, he played it before. Robert Quinn, again, he had his most success as a defensive end. He doesn't want to play linebacker anyway. So there's your ends. You know, you figure out defensive tackle. Maybe Goldman stays. You know, like we talked before, he may, you know, retire. They may cut him for cap casualty reasons. But, you know, he's a piece. Bilal Nichols, they may bring back now. Linebacker Roquan. Roquan's a stud. You know, as you remember, the Lovie Smith era, they had Urlacher and Briggs.
And Hillemeyer.
You know, and Hillemeyer and the strong side. But the Tampa 2, this scheme, this style, is that weak side linebacker, the Will. He's the stud. You know, for the Colts, it's Darius Leonard. So I mean,
he's a baller too.
That's probably where they put Roquan. They'll move him off the middle. They'll put him at the weak side linebacker spot because that's the guy they can chase. Roquan is what 4 or 5 speed. He'll chase. He'll make the plays. He's going to rack up tackles and probably finally get that Pro Bowl nod. Probably.
Yeah. Now, who do you think they'll move to the inside? Do you think they have to go to free agency or your beloved Trevathan?
Danny Trevathan is still under contract. Yeah, I mean, maybe he stays. I don't know, man. It's funny because, like, you know, when you go to nickel, you know, you bring off either your Sam linebacker or you bring off your Mike. If Trevathan sticks around and you know, because he's under contract, you know, he's a veteran. When he plays, he's fairly productive, you know. So if he's your Mike for at least 1 year. I think he could do worse. I still think he's gone just because of the money. I think they probably go with a different route. I mean, I'd be fine if they get a young guy there, or they may even get a guy from the Colts. I mean, they have a couple free agents as well. So look for that in free agency. Matt Eberflus going back to his old team, bringing some Colts over with him to the Bears.
And speaking of, he brought two coaches with him as well too. Tell us a little bit about what you know about that.
There's at least 3 that I know of.
3.
There's nothing.
Wow.
There's nothing official yet with the Bears. Obviously they're starting to go through the negotiations. The last I heard was Alan Williams is their safeties coach. He is probably interviewing for defensive coordinator for the Bears. Borgonzi is linebackers coach, and I can't remember the cornerback coach name, but there's already 3. Which, when you're poaching a guy from a staff, you can't block a coordinator move. So, like for example, Williams is their safeties coach. He's going to come for the Bears for DC. The Colts can't block that, so that's going to happen. But there's 2 others rumored to come. So I don't know whether they're out of contract, whether the Colts are just being cool and saying, what, take your guys. It's a good opportunity for them. So, I mean, this entire coaching staff probably is going to look similar to what he's used to. Plus, of course, there's the Rod Marinelli factor, the old Bears defensive coordinator. He is Matt Eberflus's mentor.
Yes, sir.
That's who he learned the defense from. They first started coaching together in Dallas. They've been connected ever since. So don't be surprised if Rod Marinelli returns to Chicago in some capacity. Probably D-line coach, maybe consult, who knows. But
I don't want to see it, but if it happens, it happens.
I mean, he's still one of the best D-line coaches around. He's late 60s, maybe. He's getting up there, but he's coached the Raiders the last couple of years, so he's still in the game doing his thing.
Yes, sir. And then just like that, we have a fan calling in today. We have a good guy by the name of Kyle on the line today. Kyle, how are you?
Dev, what's going on, man? How are you?
Man, I'm hanging in there. Me and Lester are just sitting here discussing the nod for our new head coach and GM. How are you feeling about that?
Good. You know what? I'm cautiously optimistic right now. Lester, it's nice to get a chance to speak with you as well.
What's up, man? How's it going, Kyle?
Good, man. Been following both you guys. Devon and I, obviously, and then been following you, Lester, for years on Twitter and everything else. So appreciate it. But I mean, listen, I'd love to chop it up, but I'm optimistic. Lester, I think I saw you put that he wasn't in your top 5, but there's no reason to bash it, right?
No, I mean it's a good pick. He's fine.
Yeah, we got to let it play out a little bit. Here's my thing, and I didn't know, admittedly, a ton about Eberflus prior to like December timeframe. Started doing a little deep dive on my own, just trying to get who were going to be the hot names and everything, but. There was a Hogan Johns podcast as well that did a deep dive into Eberflus, and they had some guys on from Indy. Really impressed with what I heard on that podcast from Stephen Holder, who writes for The Athletic, about the kind of person he is, the kind of program he runs, and everything else. So it's not the flashy hire. It's not the Jim Harbaugh, right? But I think that was kind of a probably – a
reach,
a long shot. Yeah, a long shot to begin with. But it's all going to depend on his OC hire. I don't have a problem with the head coach being defensive minded. There's plenty of them out there. McDermott, Carroll, Belichick. I mean, there's 10 or 15 that are good to above average head coaches that started not on the offensive side of the ball, but his OC hire is really what's going to be what defines him. I don't want to cycle through like we did with Jay Cutler, where we had a new offensive coordinator every single year.
Yeah,
that was a problem for everyone. But I will say that if they do get an OC and he does leave in a year or two, I know a lot of fans are worried about it. But listen, if that OC leaves in a year or two, it means that Justin Fields and the offense are cooking.
That's
right?
Good news.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's very good news. So hopefully Justin's transcendent enough that he'll be able to establish himself and go. I'm going to be honest, though. I'm worried that maybe, and I don't know if you guys have any other information, but I'm worried that maybe Poles and Eberflus, because they're not specifically tied to Justin. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that they're going to go all in on him? Or do you think that it's going to be a partial, commitment this year? See how far we get, kind of like the Eagles just did with Jalen, right?
I mean, if you look at, I think they're all in. I think they got to be all in right now because that's what's probably sold a lot of these candidates on the Bears job was, having a quarterback a young quarterback in place, and then I know that was part of the process is that they wanted to know what their plan was for Justin Fields, and I know Matt Eberflus's plan is one thing that stood out in Ryan Poles' mind, and that's probably one of the bigger reasons why they decided to hire him over some of the other candidates.
I was actually thinking that today as well too. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't take the job if they're already going into it iffy about the pieces that they do have into play. Obviously, Justin Fields was a rookie last year. They wouldn't go there if they were like, ooh, we don't know if we want to work with that, because then obviously the tension's going to be there. You're going to see it, and it's eventually going to come out that it isn't their guy, as like Nagy and Trubisky, and you don't want that all over again, especially with the Bears being in the position that they are in.
So I got a lot of hope for Justin. I think he showed a lot of flashes. I mean, I think just performing the way that he did in the under the circumstances he did, with really an offensive roster that was really deficit of like real skill position players, and an offensive coaching staff that was doing him absolutely no favors. I think we can all agree on that. He's still got a lot of flaws in his game to me, but I am hopeful. I love the character of the guy more than anything, and I think he's going to outwork anybody that we've had in the past. I know there was always stories about Trubisky outworking everyone or staying late. I think Justin Fields will literally outwork everyone on that team. Just his mentality as a man is really impressive to me every time I see him or read about him or hear him speak. So I just have one other question for you guys, and then I don't know how much longer you want me to ramble on here. I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to do this. I've always wanted to do this. I really appreciate you giving me the chance. But,
yes, sir.
There's been a lot of chatter tonight about Luke Getsy coming from Green Bay.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we're on board with this, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean he's the last 3 years worked with in the Matt LaFleur system. That's obviously the Kyle Shanahan. That's the big in vogue system. That's what a lot of the rumors were speculating that Matt Eberflus wanted. He wanted someone that was schooled in that system. But that's not all he did. He's also worked with more of a vertical passing game when he was with Mike McCarthy. So he has some other stuff, in his toolbox, so to speak. But if he comes in and he designs the offense around Justin Fields, which is what, the report was today, that they don't want a specific guy coming in running his show. They want to come in and they want to collaborate on the staff and build the best thing for Justin Fields. Who knows? I mean, getting that Shanahan style offense, the bootlegs, the zone run scheme, the play action. I think that's definitely something that Justin Fields would thrive in, and I think the numbers showed that this last year as a rookie. When he was outside the pocket, and when he was also doing play action, that's when he had his best passer rating. So he'll grow into a pocket passer, but I think for now, getting a scheme built around him and what he does good, I think that's the best thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I admittedly don't know a ton about Getsy. I mean, just obviously what everyone's saying, but it did sound like he was more of a McCarthy disciple. But McCarthy, I think, let him go in 2017. Well, yeah. I guess that's when McCarthy got fired, right? Yeah.
Then he went to college. I think he went to college for a couple years.
Mississippi State or something.
Yeah, he was their OC there, and then he came back. And like I said, he's 3 years with LaFleur, so he should know that system pretty good.
Yeah, and I understand he was also in charge of third downs. So he was situational third down on LaFleur's staff. So LaFleur breaks down his staff into like Nathaniel Hackett was in charge of the gold zone or the red zone.
Yeah.
Right, planning for that. So Getsy was specific on third down, which I like because the Bears were really bad on third down the last few years. So
you don't like those hooks 2 yards short of the sticks?
Man, if I never see another 7-yard static curl, oh my gosh. I've never seen so many static routes in my life as you do watching those guys. So no, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that I really like the Poles hire. I think Eberflus is a little safer than, say, going Brian Daboll. To be honest, Brian Daboll kind of reminds me a little bit more of Matt Nagy than anything else.
He just got the Giants gig tonight.
The Giants just signed him. Which, listen, even his own GM Joe Shane still interviewed, a handful of guys after getting that job. So just to make sure, but I know a lot of fans wanted him and things like that. So no, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think Eberflus is a little safe. I like that he's bringing the Loafs back and kind of going to that Lovie Smith style of defense.
Yes, sir.
I do have some concerns on linebackers and linebackers and corners. Well, safety too, for that matter.
Yeah.
That they currently have on the roster. But we'll see how it goes. So cautiously optimistic, excited to see the free agency period because I think that's where we're going to make more headway because, Ryan Pace didn't leave us with a whole lot in the cupboard as far as draft picks goes. So hopefully that's a trend that breaks as well a little bit. But no, I really appreciate it, guys. I really appreciate the chance to get on here and chop it up. And Devon's been bugging me for forever, and it's just the schedule's never worked out. So I apologize, man. But
no worries. I'm glad we finally were able to get you, young man.
Nice. All right.
That being said, you have yourself a great night.
You too.
All right, man. Take it easy. Yep. See it.
Bye.
Just like that, we had our first.
And
fan
that's official, man. Look at this. You got the phone calls.
Yeah.
In.
Hey,
Man.
let's go.
That's for real.
I'm trying to tell you, bro. We're trying to build something great.
Nice.
As we get ready to close out, though, is there anything else you want to add about this GM and coaching thing that's been such a hot topic around the world for the Bears?
No, I just think, like Kyle was saying, I mean, cautiously optimistic. That's the buzzword. I mean, as Bears fans, right away everyone was, oh, that's a terrible hire. But it's like, come on, it's if you want to be mad about something, a lot of fans will be mad no matter what. Mm-hmm. No matter who the hire was, they would have been pissed off about it. Let Matt Eberflus get in. I mean, I didn't know a lot about him. Like Kyle said, he wasn't my top choice. I mean, I could name 5 guys I rather would have seen the Bears hire than him. Mm-hmm. But what am I going to do now? He's hired.
Yeah.
So I started doing some digging, and I like what I see. Like you mentioned, some of the other podcasts I listen to. I know J.J. Stankovitz, who used to cover the Bears in Chicago, now covers the Colts. He had some stuff to say about him as well. So, the staff looks like he's building. It's pretty damn good so far.
Yeah, and like I said, it just all depends on Justin Fields and how he does. And I'm glad that they brought in minds I'm glad that they told the minds that are coming in that they want to build around this guy, because obviously the Bears always just try to, let's just go with what we got and let's not build.
It had to be the Nagy system.
Exactly. Let's not build around what we got. And you see it flourishes with quarterbacks such as Lamar Jackson. You build around the kid, and then look how he just excels, That's how you do it. That's how you win in this league. That's how you put up points. That's how you protect your quarterback. And it looks like the Bears are trying to set themselves up for success in the future. And as we get ready to close out, I also think it just depends on what Aaron Rodgers does in Green Bay. Yeah. If he goes ahead and follow his guy to Denver, the Bears are taking back the division.
I will say this. I'm not expecting the Bears to be a playoff team next year. Yeah. But if Rodgers does go, the NFC North is wide open, and the Bears, they could pull it out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that being said, we just wrapped up another episode of the Bears Report. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, leave an engaging comment. Just like that, me and Lester, we're closing out.
You calling or you listening, tune in every week. Line for line. Oh yeah, I'm going line for line.